I think an elephant that's raised on its own is going to be very mentally disturbed because they're so dependent, so utterly dependent on the family for such a long time.
The calves behave differently from others their age. Their eyes are dull, they spend a lot of time on their own, and they are reluctant to play. The 12th of April, 2006. Inside Uganda's Queen Elizabeth National Park, the villagers of Katwe were working on their farms. Eli Asaf was carrying vegetables home to his family after a long day. He didn't see the danger coming. Eli tried to outrun his attacker, but an elephant can run faster than a man. Before Eli reached the end of the field, the elephant had caught him. He was gored to death. His good friend, Emmanuel Moate, saw it all.
When we got here, the whole place was elephants everywhere.
He was dead, but then they continued to play with him, pulling him, just playing with him.
The elephants removed all of Eli's clothes.
I found they had stripped him of all his clothes and they had pulled out his intestines.
The entire elephant family surrounded the naked body, turning the corpse and covering it with dirt. This bizarre behavior continued for nearly an hour.
The park officials had to shoot in the air to scare off the elephants, and that's when we got the chance to pick up the dead body.
Uganda has experienced elephant violence before, but those attacks were mainly the result of human confrontation. The strange circumstances that surrounded Eli Asaf's tragic death were an omen of a much deeper and darker mystery within Queen Elizabeth National Park. Wildlife biologist Eve Abe knows the Ugandan elephants better than most. She came to the park in the aftermath of some of the most intense human-elephant violence Africa had ever seen. In 1971, after a military coup, General Idi Amin seized power in Uganda.
So help me God.
He began a violent reign of terror. The East African country went into a permanent state of war. Elephants became just another casualty. Ugandan soldiers stormed into forests and game parks, killing them for meat and ivory.
This was not just shooting one elephant. It was like throwing hand grenades at family groups, mass destruction. This was war. This was total war against these animals. And they just hack the ivory and go.
A whole generation of older elephants was wiped out. With no matriarchs or mature bulls, elephant family structure was totally destroyed. 95% of the elephants where Abe worked were slaughtered. Those that remained were a generation of youngsters left to fend for themselves. But is there any mental trauma for the animals that have lived through this type of violence? After 50 years of rescuing orphaned baby elephants, Daphne Sheldrick believes that there is.
They've lost their elephant family, and family is very important to an orphaned elephant, as it is to an orphaned human.
Her experiences give an intriguing perspective on the elephant's psyche.
I think an elephant that's raised on its own is going to be very mentally disturbed because they're so dependent, so utterly dependent on the family for such a long time.
The calves behave differently from others their age. Their eyes are dull. They spend a lot of time on their own, and they are reluctant to play. Many of them have experienced violence.
Most of the orphans come to us in a pretty bad state. Physical problems and, of course, emotional problems as well.
Most show some type of insecurity or withdrawal.
When they first come in, they have difficulty sleeping. A lot of them wake up screaming at night. One little elephant that was very newborn actually managed a trumpet in his dream. Suddenly this full-blown trumpet happened in the night and was so unusual that I actually went out to see what was happening. And this little guy was fast asleep.
A shrill trumpet call is a distress signal. A distress signal a baby elephant should be incapable of making.
Normally they can't trumpet until they're about 6 months old.
Sheldrick believes the baby calf was reliving a traumatic event from its past.
They definitely have flashbacks and dreams.
Though we can't know what an elephant is thinking, the traumatic events they've lived through are all too easy to verify. Africa's national parks were set up to protect wildlife like the elephant. But often, it has been at the expense of local communities. The Maasai have inhabited East Africa since the 15th century. But when Amboseli was declared a national park in 1974, both they and their cattle were moved out. Enraged, they looked for a way to draw attention to their predicament. They attacked a symbol of all that was precious to the new park. The African elephant. The elephant spearings were an effective protest against land loss, but may have started a violent cycle of retribution.
The idea of retaliation has been certainly been in my mind for a very long time. There have been so many stories where it would seem obvious that it's revenge.
Certainly, violent interaction between humans and elephants has escalated. Yet most of the casualties were cattle. Joyce Poole believes the elephants recognize that the cows belong to the Maasai.
Some people have found it a leap even to suggest that elephants can make that association. But of course they can make that association.
The Amboseli case studies appear to support that connection. A significant majority of the female elephants known to have attacked Maasai cows have been victims of Maasai violence in the past. One such elephant is 38-year-old matriarch Odile.
A group of warriors mobilized themselves. They found Odile and her group in the swamp, and they started chasing them out. She tried to get hold of a Maasai, but when the other guys saw that, they went and she was speared 7 times.
Photographic evidence shows the extent of Odile's injuries. But what happened next was tragic.
Odile saw her calf being speared.
It did not survive. Sailel and her team have noticed a definite change in Odile's behavior since the death of her baby.
She's not okay. She doesn't trust Maasai anymore. And all the time when you see her, she's nervous.
In the months that followed, Odile was implicated in the deaths of several Maasai cows.